Welcome to Discovering the Law. My name is Lucy Rivera and I am the host in this program. This episode can be viewed at www.discoveringthelaw.com. Today we have a very special guest. We have Boston Bar Association's Volunteer Lawyers Project Executive Director Sheila Hubbard. Hello, how are you today?
I'm good,
Sheila?
how are you?
I'm so pleased that you're here with us. Would you please tell us what are the services that are provided by Volunteer Lawyers Project?
Well, the Volunteer Lawyers Project is a nonprofit law firm that's about 37 years old, and we provide free legal services to low-income people. That's basically what we do. We do it primarily in the civil arena, and so we do housing, for example, evictions for both landlords and tenants, low-income landlords, low-income tenants. We do conditions if you are living in a place that, say, for example, you're disabled and you need an apartment that is accessible for those that are disabled. We can help you transfer to a unit that will accommodate that. So we do a variety of housing issues. We also do family law. So if you are trying to get a divorce or custody of your children or child support or guardianship of your either minors or incapacitated adults, we help with that. We also do consumer work. So if you have high credit card debt, we can help you with that. And also if you need to file bankruptcy, and I know that's something that people think, oh, we don't want to file bankruptcy, but sometimes it's actually the best option for people in their economic circumstances. We do unemployment work, so if you were wrongfully terminated from your job, we can help you with that. We do a little bit of probate work, so wills and estates. And yeah, that's the main type of work that we do.
Well, that sounds like a vast area of work. And who is eligible for all the services you provide at the Volunteer Lawyers Project of the Boston Bar Association?
So it's primarily three categories of eligibility. We are a federally funded entity, and so there are restrictions around the way that we provide the services and who we can provide the services to. So there are income eligibility requirements, so you have to be between 125% and 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. So translated, for example, a family of four, that would mean a yearly income of just shy of $30,000, which is monthly maybe around $2,500 a month. So you have to be income eligible. You also have to live within our geographic service area. So it's pretty much all of the cities and towns in Route 128, so Greater Boston and a little beyond. And then finally, you do have to be either a citizen or a legal alien.
And well, all the services you're providing for low-income people, how are you eligible to provide all these services for free?
Well, for two reasons. One is, as I mentioned, we are a nonprofit that's federally funded, so all that we provide is free. And then we have volunteer lawyers, so most of the way that we provide services is through volunteers. There's actually two models for providing legal services. One is what is called a staff model, so the legal services entity has a lot of lawyers on staff, and the staff lawyers provide it. And then there are organizations like us who do it primarily through a volunteer model. So we have about 1,000 volunteers who have signed up with us, and it runs the gamut from solo practitioners, people in medium firms, large firms, government, lawyers who want to do some good.
And how do these people access your services at Volunteer Lawyers Project?
So there are two primary ways to access our services. So first, we have another legal services entity that we actually sub-grant part of our grant to, and they do our intake and screening to make sure that people are eligible, and that's the Legal Advocacy and Resource Center, LARC, commonly called LARC. So their phone number, if people are interested, is 617-603-1700. And so you can call them They will screen and see if you fit the 3 criteria that I outlined a few minutes ago. And then another way that you can access our services is right at the court. We have court clinics, so we are at the court probably every day of the week except Monday, and we provide services right there. So if you have a court date, you can just show up and come to our table, and if you need a lawyer to come in with you to the courtroom on that day to represent you, then we have volunteers to do that. So, for example, we're at Suffolk County Courthouse, the Edward Brooke Courthouse on New Chardon Street, you know, right in the Government Center area.
Yes.
So on Tuesdays, we're there doing guardianship and family law work. On Wednesdays, if you have consumer issues, so credit card debt, bankruptcy, you can come on Wednesday. And then if it's housing related, we're there 2 days out of the week, on Wednesday and Thursday. So Wednesday is public housing, so if you have a, you know, housing authority voucher, Section 8, and are having eviction issues or other issues, you can come on Wednesday. And Thursday is for private tenants, so if you're just, you know, renting from a, you know, private person's home or apartment complex.
And Fridays?
And Fridays, we are at some of the other courts, so Middlesex and Norfolk.
Yes. Your presence is also there.
Yes.
Sounds like there are a lot of cases that come through your door. Give us a sense of one of the cases that you would typically deal with at Volunteer Lawyers Project.
Okay, so we do housing and family law are our biggest areas. So let's take a guardianship case, for example. We often have grandparents who are taking care of their grandchildren because the parents are not there. It could be, you know, someone has recently passed away, and the other parent, they just don't know where they are. And so for the grandmother, the grandfather, to be able to access the benefits that the children are entitled to, they have to have legal custody or guardianship of those children. So if you needed that guardianship and to enroll them, you know, in various programs, you would just come on Tuesday to Suffolk if you're in that county, and come right to the table. We'll give you the paper, help you fill it out, show you what to do, and really walk you through the process.
Great. So how many clients does Volunteer Lawyers Project serve?
A lot.
No. I'm sure.
So last year we served about 7,000 clients, and that is from anything from brief advice over the phone, because there are some things that people call with, and we can just tell them, you know, they have this particular paper, what does it mean? And somebody can just tell them that over the phone, all the way to what we call extended representation, which is to actually take the case, represent them in court, and take them, you know, from the beginning of their legal issue to the end. So we did about 7,000 last year. And
so your clients are not only people, but also the
volunteers.
Yes.
We actually have 2 constituents. So as I mentioned, we have about 1,000 volunteers that have signed up with us that are active at various times, you know, throughout the year. And so we do a lot to support a volunteer lawyer. So if there's lawyers out there that want to volunteer with us, they can call us at 617-423-0648. And we really take someone, you could know absolutely nothing about family law, and we are really good at training our volunteers, providing mentoring for them, supporting them in their work, and we provide malpractice insurance that every lawyer has to have. So they're covered by our malpractice if they do our cases. And then, of course, we screen the cases and make sure they're, you know, appropriate and able to be represented, and then we're there for the support throughout the process.
Volunteer Lawyers Project is a great way for new attorneys to learn, gain experience, and be trained, so there is no excuse. And what is that number again? For all the lawyers who should volunteer.
That's right, that's my line, and that's great. 617-423-0648. And I often say that an investment not only of your time, but also your money in the Volunteer Lawyers Project is a great investment. Our total budget is about $2 million. And last year, our volunteers provided about 20,000 hours of volunteer work, valued at about $4.2 million. So we did a lot of good work out
That's
there.
a lot of good work out there.
Yes.
So what happens to the non-English speaking clients?
So we serve non-English speaking clients.
Okay.
I would say about 15% of our clients are limited English proficient clients. The highest, the language most commonly represented by us are Spanish speakers, followed by Haitian Creole, and then Vietnamese and Cantonese. What's really unique about the Volunteer Lawyers Project is that we provide not only the free lawyer, but we provide a free interpreter for the client and for the volunteer to use, and we are the only legal services in the state that provides that interpreter free for the volunteers. So it's a really, we really try to meet the needs of our clients, speaking English or not.
A lot of good work out there, but what about the deaf and hard of hearing?
We also do that. It's an area that we want to do more in, and we actually recently applied and learned that we got a grant to really expand our reach to the deaf and hard of hearing population. So we're going to be serving those clients more as well.
So who should people contact for help?
For the clients?
Well, people who are, you mentioned the phone number, but
Right.
what is the intake process if there is somebody who out there is watching and thinks that he might meet or she might meet the criteria? Who can they contact, or how does it work?
Yeah, so really they should call LARC, our Legal Advocacy and Resource Center, at that 617-603-1700 number, because they'll be able to tell the person what the issue is, and so the person on the phone will be able to say, one, really, is it a legal issue? Because sometimes people think they have a legal issue when they don't. And then whether it's something that they can get free legal help with. If they are above our income guidelines, then LARC staff have a place to refer them so that they can get representation from other sources. So that's what they would do.
And is it a good idea? What's your advice to them in terms of when they start receiving these notices and they don't have a lawyer? What would you tell them?
So we understand that the legal process can be overwhelming. It can be very scary. It can be confusing, and people respond to that in a variety of ways. But if you think about it in a medical setting, and I know you recently had Judge Ginsburg on your show, and
Yes.
He's head of the Senior Partners for Justice, which is part of Volunteer Lawyers Project. He often says that if you had a medical condition, you wouldn't go and try to operate on yourself.
Yes.
You would need a professional. It's the same with the law.
Yes.
You really need someone to make sure that your rights are preserved, that you meet the deadlines. So ignoring it is not a good idea, because the situation will just get worse. It doesn't get better, and it doesn't go away. So you're best able to preserve whatever rights you have if you address it in a timely fashion. You can't really represent yourself as fully as you could if you had studied the law and understood all of the terminologies and what all of the benefits and the rights are that you have. We really make it possible for clients to really understand a complicated process. We have quotes on our website from clients, and one of the clients said after having gotten our services that we gave them, their attorney gave them their pride, their dignity, and a roof over their head. So they had a housing issue. But really, if you've got a legal issue, you should just call and at least get the information.
And so that's why Volunteer Lawyers Project does this kind of work.
Yes.
Why else do this kind of work?
Well, I do this kind of work. Well, this is why I went to law school. I went to law school so that I could help people, especially those that really don't have a voice. And so access to justice is really important. And one thing that I've heard someone say, if you think about the Constitution, the preamble to our U.S. Constitution, it says, "We the people of the United States, in order to, one, form a more perfect union." The second thing in our preamble is to establish justice. So our country, after the formation, the next most important thing listed was justice. And for us, our justice system is based on the premise that both sides will have representation. If one side has a lawyer and the other side doesn't, that's not going to be a fair process. So providing that kind of access, especially to people that can't afford it. We don't want to be a country where you only get justice if you have money. So that's why I do this work. That's
commendable work. What do you do on a day-to-day basis as the executive director of Volunteer Lawyers Project?
Oh boy. Most executive directors of nonprofits would say that they wear a multitude of hats. Mm-hmm. So you are the leader and priority setting person in the organization. You are the one of the fundraisers in the organization. You are the face. You manage the staff. You interact with your board of directors to help set policy for the organization. You do a multitude of things as an executive director.
And what are your ethical guidelines, or what's your limitations within your practice for Volunteer Lawyers Project?
So as I mentioned, we are funded by the Legal Services Corporation, which is the single largest funder of legal services in the country. So they fund, there are about 135 grantees across the country. So every part of our country is represented by some legal services organization that's funded by the Legal Services Corporation. With that, though, comes a few restrictions. So as I mentioned earlier, you have to be a citizen or a legal resident alien. You have to fall within our income guidelines. There are certain kinds of cases we don't take. So we can't represent any persons that are currently incarcerated. There are other legal services in the state that represent prisoners.
Yes.
Prisoner Legal Services in Boston represents incarcerated persons. We don't do any class action suits, and we don't do any lobbying.
Immigration?
Right. You have to be a resident, so no immigration work.
And about how many, what's your staff like at Volunteer Lawyers Project? And you did mention that they support the attorneys who are volunteering. What is your staff amount, or
right? So we have, I think we have a relatively small staff for the large amount of work that we do. So the full staff is about 20 permanent staff. Of that, there are 10 lawyers. 3 of us are in management. So in terms of the work being done, I don't really count that. There are 7 staff that do all of that work, the volunteers and the mentoring and representing clients.
And now, Senior Lawyers for Justice is part of Senior Lawyers is part of Volunteer Lawyers Project. How is that interaction, or how did that come about with Judge Ginsburg?
Well, as you saw with Judge Ginsburg, he has an enormous heart and a sense to provide justice. From his years on the bench in family court, seeing so many litigants appearing unrepresented. And so I believe it was the day after he retired that he decided to form Senior Partners for Justice, and partnered with the Volunteer Lawyers Project because it was a nice partnership to provide the support for the volunteers that would come and represent clients. It started primarily in family law, but now we do all areas of the law. And it has a community that's formed there, so they have their monthly lunches. There are listservs that people can, have their questions asked. So, I mean, that's some of the support that VLP, Volunteer Lawyers Project, in general provides for volunteers, is that kind of a community. We also provide very much reduced training for MCLE courses. So if you volunteer with us, you can take some courses for $25, which is quite a savings. Yes, we can say that. The vouchers actually for this year just came in the office this week.
I'll be there. Now, you have a presence in Middlesex and you have a presence in Norfolk for Volunteer Lawyers Project. You appear in these courts to provide your services with volunteer lawyers. How come you are just affiliated with the Boston Bar Association? I know it's the Boston Bar Association Volunteer Lawyers Project. Explain that dynamic.
So when we started, we were a project of the Boston Bar Association, ergo the title Volunteer Lawyers Project of the Boston Bar Association. And we were really the first in the country of this model of doing legal services through volunteers. And many of the other entities throughout the country are really kind of modeled off of the Volunteer Lawyers Project. As you can imagine, we grew to the point where we became our own independent nonprofit, 501c3, and that happened in 1983. So while we are separate from the Boston Bar Association, but because of the close relationship that's where we started, that's where we were born, we do keep the part of the name of the Boston Bar Association because of that really close connection and partnership that we have. But we are two independent entities. And
what do you see more at Volunteers Lawyers Project? What kind of cases do you see more popular? What kind of people or what cases do you think are more in need of your services?
So we see housing and family law are our largest. I think our consumer practice is growing, but we see a lot of people that are facing eviction. We see a lot of people that are trying to get divorced and making sure that their custody of their children is appropriately managed, and also making sure that they have child support, adequate child support. So those are our biggest areas.
You would say that maybe in Boston, housing is the biggest issue?
Family law is probably the biggest, and then housing is a close second.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you're thinking about people's lives, I mean, where you live, and making sure that you have not only a roof over your head, but that the housing is adequate, it's safe, the conditions are safe, and then also, if you need child support or income alimony, I forgot to mention that, but alimony.
Great.
All of those things are what stabilizes a family unit. So the kind of work that volunteers are doing is really, making a difference in very significant ways for people.
Well, we ran out of time, but we are so impressed and grateful and thankful to all the volunteers and to you and to Judge Ginsburg for this incredible service that's available for people with no money or low income or in need or who can't find a lawyer. And for all of you, thank you for watching. This has been one more episode of Discovering the Law, and this can be viewed throughout the month and also at our webpage, www.discoveringthelaw.com. My name is Lucy Rivera, and I was very grateful for your time today. Thanks for watching.